Hello and good evening, and apologies for if you were waiting for the video to start at 8 o'clock. So were we, and we pushed the big red button mark to go live, and
They said, we
yeah,
don't like your stream.
computers.
So, joys of it. So,
But we're going to give obviously a few people a few minutes just to join us. But if you have joined us, if you're joining us for the very first time because you've been gifted a membership of the club over Christmas, welcome, and it's lovely to see you. And thanks very much to whoever gave you that gift. And if you bought it for yourself, even better. Why not treat yourself? So yeah, we're the Online Wine Tasting Club, and this is Jamie.
Hi, yes, absolutely, and a pleasure to see you all this evening. It's I can't believe it's 2023 already.
It does seem very, very bizarre indeed that these years seem to be going past at quite such a rate. But yeah, we started this up in 2020, obviously during slightly different times. But yeah, it's been a great fun thing to go and explore the world. And now we've done, we've been doing 2 at least tastings a month for the last couple of years. So yeah, it's great, and I can see more people joining, so that's good.
So, absolutely. So for those of you who are new to this, you probably need to pop Slido in so people can do that.
I can do that.
So what we're going to do is we've got 6 wines to taste through, and Alex is just going to pop up a little link here for you. So there's a little thing we call Slido. So you can either use another device and scan the QR code, or you can go to slido.com and put that code in there. And what that will allow you to do is pop your tasting notes in. So as we go through the wines, that will come up and you can put your tasting notes in completely anonymous, and it creates this little word cloud. So you can put everything from lemon to lime to wet badger to whatever you like in there.
Don't encourage
and then
him.
we get to see what everyone else seems to think. So we've got 6 wines, and we really value your thoughts, your opinions, what you like. So get that popped into the chat to see what is going on. If we're not telling you what you want to know,
fire a question over.
Fire a question. Let us know what you want to do and pop it in the chat. And there we are. Kathy starting off today with a happy New Year, and to Kathy,
huge
congratulations on the diploma. Very well done.
Kathy's been with us for a good long time, and has been working towards this immensely hard wine exam, the diploma of wine from the WSET, the Wine and Spirits Education Trust, and that's a heck of an achievement. So, very well done to you there. But yeah, today we're going to be talking about some of the trends that we think are happening in this year, and it's been quite interesting because at this sort of time of year we get some of our suppliers who now have been emailing in what they think the trends are, and there's quite a bit of overlap, though, isn't there?
We don't listen to that.
We don't listen to that. Yeah.
But yeah, also, what are your trends? What are you expecting from 2023 in the world of wine? Are you drinking different? Are you drinking more? Are you drinking less? Are you drinking exactly the same because you know what you love? So there's some things that I think may well happen this year, and we'll come back at the end of the year and go, he's got absolutely no idea. But so without further ado, we should probably get wine number 1.
Let's do wine number 1. Absolutely. Now I'm really quite proud of this because we're very lucky here because this wine was only launched on Monday, and in fact there's very little information about it out there at all, and they took a big gamble on getting some of the very, very first of this to us. And the brand Thompson & Scott, they make this wine called Naughty, and it's available in a white sparkling, a rosé sparkling, a red still, and now a white still as well. And it comes spring, there's probably going to be a rosé added to the collection.
There is rumour on the street.
It's a really interesting thing. We've done one de-alcoholized wine in the past, and I think a lot of people have been put off by the fact that a lot of these are incredibly sweet, super, super sweet. They're basically just kind of there are ones which resemble just fruit juice, don't they?
And I think that's the thing. And if we take the non-alcoholic things in the world, there's so many great non-alcoholic beverages out there. Fruit juices and all those kind of sodas, whatever it is. Some really good stuff.
Beers now as well.
But beers have changed drastically. And I can tell my story of how beers have changed as I went through my wife having children and the family growing. My eldest is 7, and back, when I was very, very young, first getting to beer, non-alcoholic, you had Caliber, and that was about the choice.
Oh, God, yeah. Wow.
7 years ago, there were some more decent ones. And then 4 years ago, when my second was, there was a much better range, and you're actually starting to see non-alcoholic beers. Wine hadn't really followed that trend.
It just hadn't, had it? No.
It was kind of, because it's made with grapes, it's just this like fruity grape juice and nothing that much of excitement.
Yeah.
And I was a big thing of people, why have you not done non-alcoholic wines? I'm like, because there's not enough great ones out there to do it.
No.
And being a wine club and a wine tasting club,
Quite, yeah.
You know, I'm not going to put my name behind something that I don't think is absolutely delicious. But I really think this wine has, for a de-alcoholized white wine, has hit the mark. And I'd love to hear what people's opinions are.
And it's recognisably a Chardonnay.
Yeah.
It's not just white wine.
Not only as, hey, this is a non-alcoholic, you know, alternative or choice or whatever that is. Is it a good non-alcoholic drink that you just like to drink anyway? Yeah. But how does it stand up to, you know, a regular wine, and where do you feel the thoughts and the differences are?
Yeah, no, quite right. And I mean, I've at home, I've been drinking their still red wine, which is I think is by far and away the best de-alcoholized red wine that I've had, and it's to the point where I can definitely enjoy it with a meal in the same way that I would have enjoyed it. It has a bit of tannin, it has a bit of structure, it has a distinct Syrah kind of characteristic to it, and I think that's not this wine, to be clear. That doesn't have much of a Syrah characteristic, but it's a real achievement. But I think the crowning glory of their wine, which we would have loved to do, is the sparkling. The sparkling is absolutely phenomenal. There's a recent review done. Well, they've been scoring great guns with their sparkling wines, and it's all created by a lady called Amanda Thompson, who used to work in arts broadcasting in the BBC, but who then decided to go back and do, guess what, her diploma in wine through the Wine Spirits Education Trust. She actually did that at one of our earliest partners for the wine tasting club here, the Cordon Bleu Cookery School. And clearly she's got a phenomenal taste for these things, and is working with some really cool wine producers around the world, both in Spain and in South Africa. So this one is a Chardonnay. In fact, actually, perhaps we should introduce our new little mini structure, shall we?
We can do.
Yeah, sure.
So, Alex,
tend to ramble a bit.
Alex thinks I ramble too much, and we go off at strange tangents. And if you put it in the chat, we will go off at strange tangents. But what we're hoping on the Discoverers level, rather sort of wander off into the abyss of nothingness, we will pull ourselves back, and with each wine that you taste, fingers crossed, you should be able to, at the end of each wine, know who the producer is, where it comes from, what the grapes are in it. Something interesting about it, that when you buy a bottle of it and you sit around the table, you say, that's a cool thing about this. You know, we'll do the tasting notes together, and then we'll try and, you know, get it into the real world with a little bit of a food pairing. So this is Thompson Scott Naughty Blanc. It's from South Africa, and from the Western Cape. So what's cool about that is they get this beautiful breeze coming in, which keeps, you know, the grapes for South Africa relatively cool, which means you can still keep this lovely acidity, even though you've got quite a high level of sugar in here. It's made mainly with Chardonnay, 98%, and then just a little hint of Chenin Blanc in the back end.
Indeed.
The cool fact for this is it's de-alcoholized. And the way they do that is, rather than try and make an alcohol-free wine by not going through any fermentation, and then you just get grape juice and sugar, they make a real wine, and then they de-alcoholize it by spinning it to get the alcohol out.
And I think the other cool thing for me is that, you know, this is a brand, a British brand.
Cool fact.
Cool fact. I know, but I'm giving you a moment because I think that we don't always realise that a lot of the wines that are made in this country, British brands of wine, they barely ever go out beyond England at all. You get a few going to Scandinavia, a few going to America. This is already starting to be sold all around the world. Certainly their sparkling ones have conquered it. And Amanda was in Hawaii last week launching it there. That's a tough job, isn't it? But it's great to see a British brand going off and doing great things all around the world.
So there's a point on here from Sam, if you can pop that up on the chat.
I love Dave's one, though, saying he didn't even realise. Surely that's a good sign.
It tastes sweet, doesn't it smell? Very there's a disappointing aftertaste, a bit flat. And what I'll put, I agree.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. No.
So what we have in wine that helps it get that weightiness and that wine feel is the alcohol. Alcohol gives that weightiness and that heaviness on the palate. So when that gets away, that has to be replaced with something. And in this case, it's sugar. And in here, you're looking at about 20 grams a litre of sugar. So that's in that kind of off-dry Riesling kind of category. That's Spätlese, maybe Auslese kind of category if we're in Germany. So that's why you've got that richness, that sweetness. And yet, because I think we have these Chardonnay flavours and these Chenin Blanc flavours, it doesn't. The sugar does mask a little bit of acidity, and why it does finish maybe a little bit flat than a regular glass of wine. So I completely agree with you, Sam. But that's kind of in the way it's processed, and that's kind of how it's going to be.
I think the acidity,
unless they add a load of lemon juice to it.
Well, they keep a lot of the natural acidity from the fruit in this, and I think that helps balance it. And it's worth saying that while that sounds quite a lot of sugar, compared to most other de-alcoholized wines, that's about half as much. An awful lot of them tend to sort of really rely on that sugar, and so they've built in a lot more kind of other wine components into that to try to make it do it. But if you think that the still one kind of lacks a bit of that sort of that it feels a bit flat on the aftertaste. One of the first thoughts that we had with this was it tasted a little bit like their sparkling Chardonnay as well, which, funny enough, comes from the same vineyards. And it just, with the extra joy of that fizz and the bubbles, it really, really transforms it. So do go and check out a bottle of their fizz. But I think this is good to have with a meal still.
Let's dive into the tasting notes. What's everybody got on here? Now I've got the screen nearer to me. I might be able to actually read them.
Let's do that. Okay, I'll turn this badger off. There we go.
So we've got sour, lemon, apple, smooth, sharp. So yeah, I think we're coming back to that. It is simple. It's a non-alcoholic drink, but I think it's absolutely delicious. You can't compare apples and apples at this point.
No,
you can't. It's not Chablis. It's not that. But for a non-alcoholic drink, I'm just intrigued if anyone else has had non-alcoholic wines, where this compares to anything else you've tasted previously or tried. So, if you've got those thoughts in there, that would be great.
And I think the thing for me,
food pairing. What are you having with this?
So, I think it's got to be quite a light flavour. I think it works really nicely with sort of cheap, creamy pasta-y dishes. Not with stronger flavoured fish, but certainly with a lighter flavoured fish, that could be really good. And the nice thing is that I think this does pair with food, whereas a lot of the other ones, it's almost like, what's the point of it? Because it's just so overpowered.
I think
food,
this,
or it's too
where,
sweet.
where it has that little bit of sweetness, it might do very well with a lightly spiced dish, almost like a spicy garlic prawn or something that would go really well, because you've got the acidity, you've got that sweetness that would go with the sweetness of the shrimp or the prawn, and I think that could be really good. So, but I think it's an interesting wine. I think it's cool to have it out there and go, there are these really, really great non-alcoholic options coming onto the market if you want to do that. But for those who are here for Online Wine Tasting Club, we should probably
that's a fair point.
Do some wine.
We can do some alcoholic wine now at this point. But
that sounds like a great idea.
I'm very happy. I know that we have this awful tendency when we're cooking at home to think, oh, that would pair beautifully with this, and open a bottle of it, and then we might have a glass left over at the end of it, and it's just, I think we all realise we perhaps need to be, ought to be doing this a bit less, especially as we're getting older. And I am, that's for sure. It's been working with you,
something like that.
But it's cool, and it just helps you if you like having a glass of wine with your meal to sort of break that kind of habit. So that's really cool for me. But do you check out the red and the sparkling, because I think those are the absolute standouts.
Definitely the sparkling. Wonderful, fantastic.
I'll move the tasting notes on to wine number 2. So this is from Macedonia.
Absolutely. So I think, Alex, for those who are new to wine, new to this area, and might be at home going, where the hell is Macedonia? And what does it do? I think Alex has got a little map video.
I have, because I think it's quite useful to look at it where it is, and sort of when we talk about the wine regions, there's this band that goes around the world. Well, 2 of them, in fact, one in the northern, one in the southern hemisphere. And in that region, it's a good place to grow grapes and to make wine. And this certainly Macedonia is in some pretty good company in the band that it covers. So I'll just pop this up. It's going to make me shut up for a second. And we're back. Yeah, so you can see it's in that same kind of band that you find Tuscany in, and that's not a bad place for growing grapes. Oh, it looks like that has moved on now. That's great. But yeah, so I'm going to have to read this again. Smederevka. It's very... Just checking, do people have sound? I'm seeing that someone's saying that, but
there wasn't any sound.
There wasn't any sound on that little video.
It was just a
little map. So that's what that was. But Kathy's having with a bit of Poussin. It doesn't particularly enhance it. it sounds obviously quite strongly flavoured, so perhaps that might be the sort of thing there. Yep.
Absolutely, but I just think, food and wine pairings, sometimes it doesn't need to be a match made in heaven. If it's good food and it's good wine, does it always have to enhance it?
Not always, no.
Just drink it, enjoy it, have fun with it. So we are Tikves. So Tikves is not only the winery, it's also the region in Macedonia. It's a whole region, the Tikves wine region, and Tikves winery is in the middle of this. And the grape here is Smederevka. It's mainly Smederevka.
Yep.
It's got a little bit of Riesling blended into it.
That's probably why he likes it.
What doesn't need a little bit of Riesling blended into it every now and again. But this is for our trends of the year. There's a lot of grapes that people know and love, that they've always been drinking, that they'll buy from the supermarket or their independent wine shop as their everyday drinking wine, their Pinot Grigios, their Sauvignon Blancs, their Chardonnays. And I know those wines are all very vastly different when you go into certain parts of the world, but those kind of just nice, easy drinking white wines. But those with those regionalities and those grapes seem to just be creeping up a little bit in price. What was £8 is now 10 quid, is now 12 quid, is now 15 quid. And suddenly you go, oh, I used to drink that and it was cheap and cheerful and delicious. And now that same wine is becoming a bit of a treat that you go, oh, should I, shouldn't I? So I think, something like this that comes in, and I know we do price it there, but this comes in under 10 quid. Showcases that you can drink some really, really good stuff.
And it's fascinating.
Because it's from somewhere a little bit different. And we bring these wines around. This isn't new wine. This isn't new wine. It's new wine to a lot of us. But they've been making this thousands of years. Of years. But it is another thing that it comes up and it can be...
And this winery alone has been operating since, I think, 1885 around then. So.
But, it comes up and, you pick this bottle up and you go, what's the Bella, what's Smederevka, what's that? And on a supermarket shelf or a wine shop shelf, who's the producer, who's what this? So what we're hoping here, and I can't see the tasting notes, but I can see there's a lot in there, which keeps people happy. So, summarising this before we go into the tasting notes. So the producer is Tikves. It's from the Tikves wine region in the Republic of Macedonia. The grapes in it is Smederevka, which is indigenous grape, and a little bit of Riesling.
And it's a very modern winery. It isn't, if you think of Macedonian wine, you might think something quite rusty. This is an upstate modern winery doing things nice and fresh and keeping it really delicious and tasty.
The cool fact, I think, we could go down the line. The cool fact is it's from Macedonia. And I just think it's great wine and the value on it is really cool. Tasting notes. Let's see what everyone else is tasting.
Let's have a look. Yeah, let's see what everyone else is saying. Right. Let's turn that off. Now that comes up there. So waxy. So that's why we were thinking in this sort of Pinot Gris world.
It's got that Pinot Gris. It's got that weightiness, almost like an Austrian Grüner Veltliner. It has that kind of thing. And I think that's the thing. It's got lots of different things in there, and lots of things that people will like and associate with something that they've enjoyed previously. So we've got that lemon and lime that will remind you of Pinot Grigio. We've got that white pepper and waxy. That's not a million miles from a Grüner Veltliner tasting note. We've got apples, which are your Chardonnays and things like that. So an apricot, your stone fruit. It's got a little bit of something for everybody in there. Yeah, quite. But still light, fresh, easy drinking. It's not.
I think it's even got something slightly floral, perhaps coming from the Riesling. But you can just about get that through there, and I think it's.
But I think that it's not overpowering one way or the other. There's not. I wouldn't say there's really a dominant flavour in that.
No.
Which makes it very approachable, very drinkable. This is, and I said earlier to my entire team, you're not allowed to say you can drink it by yourself or pair it with food. It's like, go, oh yes. You see, so many people make tasting notes. This would pair well with this, or can just be drunk by a glass alone. And I said that's the equivalent of having a CV where it says, can do tasks by myself, but also work very well as a team. I'm like, that is just a catch-all of everything. You can't do that. But this is
on a Monday or a Tuesday.
But this is my exception, that you can sit and drink this cold, sat out, I say sat outside in the garden. I always get my seasons wrong on these shows, don't I? In the summer, I talk about winter fires, and then when it's minus 11 out, I'm talking about sitting in the garden.
I think at the moment this will turn into a block of ice rather quickly. But what do you guys think? Are you enjoying it? Kathy thinks it's a better pairing with the food. I think that feels intuitively a better, a more reasonable match, But yeah, I think it's a really nice, good sort of balanced wine that does a lot of things at a very good price point.
Absolutely, these guys these guys also make some, international grapes. They make some Chardonnay. They make some other indigenous reds,
Yeah.
and some really, really cool, fun styles. Some unpronounceable things that
Yeah.
are related to Zinfandel, and it's a little bit of everything. They make a blend of. I think there's 6 or 7 grapes in it called their Cuvée Cyril, which
Oh,
is really cool. And the
Brilliant.
fact it's called Cyril,
Well,
you
quite
can't
right.
go wrong with that.
Quite right.
And yes, as
Yeah.
Sam says, very well balanced. It's got
Yeah,
a little bit of everything in there. It's a very, very, very versatile wine. And for me, this is the kind of, I would love to, have people around for dinner and put it on the table blind and ask people what their opinion is and what they guessed it was, because I think you get 100 different
Yeah.
answers, and I think people would be pleasantly surprised that I don't think anyone's blind tasting and pulling a Smederevka out.
No, they're not. No, but
out
also
the
if you
bag.
turn up to a party with a bottle of Smederevka versus a bottle of Pinot Grigio, it's something a bit more interesting, something to talk about. It's not doesn't look like you've just been raiding the sort of the kind of the slightly more boring section of the supermarket. But yeah, I think it's great, and I hope you all agree. Let's have one last little look at that. It's definitely sort of on the melon is showing that riper fruit side of things. But yeah, it's obviously it's not a big heavy oaked wine, and that's not what it's all about. But a very pleasant drink.
It's a really good drop of juice. And the alcohol's not mental either. It only sits at 12%.
And that feeds into that as well. Again, it's a nice lighter option. So if you are having a few glasses of that with dinner, again, it's not quite such a, bit of a headache afterwards. But it does carry itself off in perhaps not so much body in it. But that's why it works well with certain foods.
Exactly. And as we go through, we'll find wines with more body, less body, all that kind of good stuff.
Yep.
And I like that. Interesting. And price-wise, we'll see at the end. But yeah, I think it's very, very, very good value.
We like to not reveal the prices at the beginning for those of you who haven't been with us, because it can change your perception of the wine. And I know we've already told you this is a budget wine, but it can do it. And
but whose budget?
good point. But yeah, it certainly does that. Interesting. So
Perfect.
we are moving on for wine number 3 to Italy, and this is going back to a producer that we've featured a couple of times, called San Marzano, and they're based down in the Salento region of Puglia. That's right down on the heel. It looks like we might have an embarrassing typography error in the tasting notes. How bizarre! I can concur. This is not a violet wine, so
we are just testing.
we're just testing. Good observational skills there, but yeah, that's that's intriguing.
We're just testing that everybody's woken up from their 2023 slumber to see what is going on here. So San Marzano, I love these guys. Really interesting people. I got to do a couple of interviews with them during the lockdown. We featured their Negra Amaro before, their Primitiva before, and this is their Timo Vermentino. So San Marzano, they've been around since 1962, and in 1962 there was 19 growers got together, and a lot of, and this is, I love Southern Italy. Well, I love all of Italy, but Northern Italy are generally the big boys, aren't they? You hear Barolo, Chianti, Amarone, Valpolicella, the big names that command the massive prices.
And the big families that go with these things as well.
And things that everybody has heard of and commands massive prices. Southern Italy is much more farmery.
Yes, I think that's fair. Yeah, and small scale farmers as well.
Lots of indigenous varieties that through the 60s and 70s, especially somewhere like Tuscany, where they were ripping things up and going after the more international varieties. These guys banded together to keep the indigenous grapes, the Falanginas, the Greca de Tufos, the Alianicos, those kind of things that you find down in those kind of like southern Italian regions. So they started with 19 growers banded together to form San Marzano, and they've now got over 1,000 growers as part of this this cooperative.
And these growers can be everything from a professional farmer who's got an awful lot to people who actually just grow some in their back their back garden. It's amazing. As you drive around Puglia, you see all these beautiful old houses, often these truly, the ones with the stone conical roofs, really beautiful. But outside will be most of the garden is turned into vine. And if they're not making the wine themselves, which still plenty of them do, they've got all their small scale winemaking equipment, but they'll group together into one of these cooperatives and try to turn it into something that perhaps has a higher value to it because it's been better made. Vermentino is an interesting story, isn't it?
It is. It is. So I could talk about this wider and this. So Vermentino is a bit of a hotbed of discussion.
Yes.
In the world of wine right now. So places in Italy are trying to protect Vermentino as a grape varietal name that you can only call your grape Vermentino if it comes from certain places, i.e. within Italy.
Yeah.
So even if it is Vermentino and it's DNA genetically identical to Vermentino and you're growing it in France, you shouldn't be allowed to call it Vermentino. So there's some people who have bit the bullet and have gone with that, and you're seeing the south of France, Vermentino is called Rolle. A fair amount. So that's Rolle with a little accent on if my pronunciation is horrible. But yeah, they're kind of going after having to have this. Having the monopoly on calling it Vermentino.
Yeah, well, it worked so well for Prosecco. That's the problem. So in Prosecco, the grape used to be called Prosecco. There wasn't a sort of a region called Prosecco, but that became their sort of brand name. And so they found a little village called Prosecco, and they drew a little sort of line around that village and then across all the way to a very long way away where the vineyards are, and they called that Prosecco, and they renamed the grape and tried to they managed to get it through as a protected term, basically, just like a Cornish pasty or a Burgundy.
And Prosecco is a very nice name, and I think they tried to give the grape the most horrible name ever, so no one wanted. Do you want to drink some Glera?
Oh, I'd love a glass of Glera with the girls.
Doesn't sound particularly great.
Not great.
So anyway,
so they're trying to do the same.
So back to this wine. So just to run down our side things, we've got our producer San Marzano. We're in Puglia in southern Italy with Vermentino. This is
100%, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and this is called Timo, and that is thyme in
in the herb variety,
as in
not
the herb, not we have all, but no singing, no singing. And that's because there is this little herbaceous feel about the wine, and also there is a lot of thyme growing around the vineyard. The cool fact about this, and this is probably a bit of a geeky wine fact, and I don't know if Mr. Turner is aware of this. As much as I do not like orange wines, this wine has some skin contact. So
does it?
It has a few hours of skin contact. So
and that's what gives it the black fruit coffee chocolate flavors. You see,
absolutely.
So turns out it was
that skin contact that did it. Definitely no. Yeah, I think that would pair with black fruit coffee and chocolate. That's our pairing notes. We've decided. So it has that skin contact, which gives it this little bit of weight, this little bit of texture about it, and this little bit of richness. So for those who are new into wine or discoverers, generally when you make a white wine, you crush the grape, get the juice away from the skins, make your wine. You don't leave the skins in generally. With a red wine, you leave the skins in because that's what gives you the colour and the flavours and the tannins. So to do a little bit of skin contact is quite unique in white winemaking. You don't see it all over the place.
Yeah, it quite often gives it a really kind of bizarre, slightly grippy flavour. You don't want tannins in a white wine normally, and you've got to do it with a very sort of light grape. Start doing it with a sort of a heavier grape, then you will start getting a lot of those skin colours, skin flavours coming into it. But let's have a look at what people are saying. Honey. Yeah. It's just got that beautiful
and that honeyness comes from the skin contact that gives it that richness, that textural kind of. And the acidity is mental. It feels quite weighty on the palate, but then you stop and your mouth just waters. There's so much acidity in there. Lemon, creamy, fruity,
honeysuckle,
citrus, wet stones, and once again, that kind of that those couple of like the honey and the wet stones, that textural kind of kind of feel in there. It's really good.
Yeah, and I think someone also said white blossom. I think there is definitely a very kind of floral element to it. But what we talk about often in rosé wines from Provence is how they gain a lot of character from all the things that are growing around the vineyards. And that's undeniably true here. And I think that's probably also enhanced by that little bit of contact time, because while it's all been crushed and mushed up, you've got all the juice in contact with those skins. So if there's some beautiful aromatic oils, essential oils on the surface of the grape, that's where they can go into it. So yeah, definitely sort of getting some of those thyme and rosemary kind of characteristics coming into it.
And
very perfumey.
What I have to leave you this is, I go back, we had an interview with these guys in 2020, and we were talking about their harvest, and it was one of their best harvests they'd ever had. But because they couldn't get any people in to, usually people would migrate through and pick the things they could do. And his line was that 2020 was a horrible year for people, but a great year for wine. And hopefully, because 2020 was so good for wine, when 2021 comes around and we can see each other again, it'll be some of the best wine ever to share together. And I thought that was such in the middle of that pandemic, in the middle of people being so that, it was such a lovely, almost like hopeful feel to go, that's what we're going to look forward to, that we can all get together and share a great bottle of wine at some point in the future. And here we are now, enjoying their wines, which is fantastic.
So yeah, I really like that. And they are such a good, competent winery. They've got the cool, geeky toys that I love in there, like sort of rotating fermenters, all sorts of things that go to my sort of little boy heart beautifully. So let's have a look at that. Something mineral about it. What soil's the vineyard on? That's an excellent question.
So it's on this very kind of like light, rocky, sandy, loamy, rocky. So it's very, very poor topsoil. So it's got to work very, very hard to get any level of yield. So this is, I think there was a comment about that minerality, and that there it is.
Yeah, indeed.
So you've got this very kind of like sandy loam. So it doesn't hold a lot of water. It doesn't hold a lot of nutrients. So they have to work very, very hard to do that. And then you get this kind of mineral thing. And also, Vermentino by itself has this lovely acidity to it. So you get that.
It does. And it needs...
there we are. That's what I said. I said yellow straw colour, delicate aroma of white flowers with notes of citrus, a Mediterranean marquee. Elegant, fresh and mineral on the palate with hints of thyme and rosemary.
Beautiful.
Can't say fairer than that.
Can't do better than that. That's excellent.
Than that.
And I think that's also your favourite. Brilliant. Well, I mean, that certainly is, I think, my verdict as well. I mean, it's harsh to compare that to a non-alcoholic white. When we were actually going to put the red in, we thought it's going to be a bit harsh putting it sandwiched in between some alcoholic wines as well. But so I'm glad we did it.
But I think so. So summarising, trends for whites. No and low alcohol.
Yeah,
whether you're a fan or not, that is going to blow up this year,
especially for the younger generations.
Really gonna start taking off. I think as grapes we all know and love become a little bit more premium, a little bit more expensive, finding new regions, new grapes, you're going to find some things coming through that haven't been tried or tested as much yet. So they don't, they're trying to find their place in the market, so become value. Something like the Smedarevka, and then there's the countries that we know and love and do great things. But those things that are just a little bit off the beaten track, that we go down to Salento and we think we're going to be drinking Primitivo and Negromaro,
maybe a bit
and we find we find a Vermentino that's a little bit different. So finding something different, go to Burgundy and find an Aligoté, go to Côte de Rhône and drink 100% Mourvèdre or something like that.
Well, I think with diseases and bad weather striking a lot of the really well-known grapes, like the harvest in 2021 was pretty lousy for an awful lot of people, in Burgundy and places. So people are treating these other grapes with a little bit more respect and giving it a little bit more care. And that just means we shouldn't, there's not this pressure on them to just be cheap, cheap, cheap. They can actually express themselves a bit more. And I think when they do, this is the kind of result of it. So yeah, really lovely.
It is, and the right wine's getting into the right places. It's how many years ago, when Muscadet was big, not a lot of people knew.
hmm
Peak pole is kind of a big thing now.
Yep.
And, 10 years ago, who really, unless they travelled, knew what a peak pole was. Malbec's massive now. And what was that 20 years ago?
Quite.
Not
Yeah.
much. So a lot of it comes around. And we'll look back in, 10 years' time and go, do you remember when we said Smederevka was this new kid on the block? And then it's like the new house wine in every pub going. So, but wine goes through these cycles. Things become popular, they fall out of fashion, they come back, they go up in price, they come down in price. Yes.
I like that idea. So
Yes.
that's a great suggestion. So featuring more Mourvèdre, and of course, Mourvèdre is a grape that goes by lots of different names. Monastrell and Mataro.
He's good. He's got
Monastrell in Spain, Mataro in Australia, and it is a grape that deserves a bit more. So some of those Spanish ones we should do the Skull wine, shouldn't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let's
so
do that.
there's lots of cool things,
like
and I think I think that comment there is huge. There's been a lot of talk this year about Rhone wines becoming big, kind of, and not just like from the Rhone, but those kind of like Rhone Ranger wines, California, Australia, kind of thing.
Yeah, and Rhone blends as well.
How do rosés fit into the trends? Well,
they're continuing on their meteoric
They
rise,
are
aren't they?
continuing. And I said rosé was going to be a massive trend for 2022, and it was, and it's just continuing. The question with rosé is which way the trend is going to go.
Yeah.
Is the trend going to go after following superstars who are putting their name on it?
Yep.
Or is it going to go after regionality? Because I would like Provence gets all the love.
Yep.
I would love to see something like Tavel come back in, which is in the Rhone, and it's this deep, dark rosé. And part of the rules of being Tavel is it has to be this dark colour. And it's fallen out of favour because this light, fresh pink colour has become the cool thing. So I would love to see rosé continue to rise, but I'd love to see there be more styles of rosé become accepted, because there's this kind of Provence. A lot, and there's amazing producers out there, and I don't want everyone from Provence to come and strangle me in my sleep. But a lot of them are very similar, and you go, well, I'm going to pick the one in the prettiest bottle, or the one that
the number one rosé now is produced by Kylie Minogue, and I mean, she's got about as much to do with it as you'd expect, which is not very much. But there is definitely, I think, there's with the category, and you look at the ones from the Whispering Angel house, they're sort of higher end range, like ones done in oak. We were seeing this incredibly expensive oat still rosé coming from our friends at Hush Heath this year, and we bumped into a wine tasting, the Liberty wine tasting the other day. Elizabeth Gabet, Master of Wine, who says hello to everyone, by the way. She literally has written all the books on rosé. And she is producing her own one this year. So that is a thing for a wine critic to actually then start producing and putting her own name on it. I think that's going to be really interesting to watch. And it's a darker rosé. It has more characteristic. It has more colour. It has more flavour. So I think that for me, I expect to see a bit more of those deeper.
Yeah, I think last year the light rosé got rosé on the map again.
Yep.
And I think now people go, all rosé, and I want to branch out will probably be where my rosé trending would be for 2023. More of a branching out rather than more of the same.
Okay, sounds good. How about we have some red?
Red wine.
So we're going to France now, aren't we?
We are indeed. So this is... my reasoning behind this is, once again, a lot of these are based on, we've seen how the world has gone in the last 6 months, year, 2 years, with everything flying up in price, everything becoming more expensive. And, we've seen, from the Tring winery side of things, people's purchasing power has dropped.
Well, they're having to spend on, stupid things like
electric.
Gas bill and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean you'd have to drink crap wine.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing. So France, there's a lot of single wines in France, but, two of the biggest regions, most famous regions in France are famous for their blends, and that's Bordeaux and the Rhone Valley. And I think a lot of times blending is tied to that, it's like, oh, blending can't be very good, blended wine, because there's not enough said about it. But what I believe is, if you have a single wine from a single place in a single vintage, and everything is right,
Then
guess
it's-
what? That wine is magic. It screams of the place, the typicity, the this, the that, the other.
Yeah.
And I think it's very similar to cooking. If you are cooking I don't know, pick something, a piece of ribeye steak, okay? If you have got the best piece of steak
Mhm.
from the best cow, all you need is a bit of salt, done, and it's amazing. But
Cooks a bit over.
if you don't have the best bit of steak from the best cow,
Yeah.
but you can add some herbs, some spices, some sauce, some this, some that,
Yep.
you can create something absolutely delicious and magical.
Indeed.
And this is where we are down in the Pays d'Oc. So this is just a general Vin de France from the
Mhm.
south of France. But where they are is, the very, very best grapes end up in these single plots and these wines that cost 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever quid.
Without doubt.
And then the stuff that doesn't quite make that great, not the crap that ends up in your massive bulk produced wines,
Mhm.
but the stuff that's kind of that middle ground that doesn't sing enough for a winemaker to put his name on it, but also still worth drinking, ends up in wines like this. So this is a blend of, different grapes. We've got some Merlot, some Carignan in there,
Some Grenache.
and some Grenache in there. So this is not something that we're expecting a million tasting notes on. Not something that someone goes, wow, I must have 1 million case of this for my house right now. But when you just want to open a bottle of wine on a Tuesday night and have a drink with dinner or a drink with your mates and not go, oh, I don't want to pull that from the cellar. I don't want to pull this from the cellar. I don't want to take that off the wine rack. Wines like this do a phenomenal job of being able. This is quintessentially French. It couldn't be from anywhere else in the world.
And they've absolutely gone for that classic sort of southern French, slightly rustic style. And if I were to be served this in a restaurant in France, this would be at the better end of what you're likely to have, and the locals would be drinking something much cheaper out of a jug. And this is a super nice one, but it just screams France. And so they've called it Le Boule, as in
A game of boules.
a game of boules or pétanque. And is there anything more French than sitting in the sunshine with a glass of red, watching people playing pétanque? Not for me. And I think it's just a very, very pleasant.
Yeah, and I
indeed.
think this is what for us, because for those who have been with us for a while, sometimes we get a little bit carried away with, oh, there was only 400 bottles of this made, and there's only this done, and the winemaker's this, and all these cool sort. And sometimes, and it's great to taste these wines, and I hope you enjoy it at home. But sometimes we put these wines on and go, they're just not approachable to enjoy all day, every day. So we're trying to make a big thing this year to have more wines that you can drink all the time.
In the Discover series,
absolutely.
And we've got
we'll still have
funky things.
We'll still have all the superstars. The superstars will still all be here. We're not dulling it down. We just want to put more options in there that you go. You try something. There's a couple of superstars. I'll have 1 or 2 bottles of that. But then, hey, I can grab 4 bottles of labels just to make up my 6-pack, so I can get my free shipping and keep everybody happy at the Online Wine Tasting Club, and keep Alex in the shirts he's grown accustomed to.
Delightful.
So,
but if you go for looking at blends, blends of red blends in particular have been a massive trend over the last few years in that consumer wine sector, and we've seen decreasing mention of what the great varieties are. You see more and more of things like 19 Crimes, which will say this is a red wine or a Californian red blend, and they have been growing more and more popular, and people love them because they smooth out the.
And even on premium wines, really big premium cult wines will say California Red Blend.
Yeah.
And you've got to go online and find a technical sheet on it, and kind of, you've got to do a bit of research to find it. You don't just pick it up and it says 38% Cab, 42% Grenache. It doesn't.
In a way, why should you care? I mean, obviously, as we're wine tasters, you can care. But if you're having something to drink, we don't always just taste every single wine that we put in our mouths. So let's have a look. So it's got light tannins, and it has these
and lots of big fruit, big jammy fruit. A little bit of spice, a little bit of tannins, and I hope you find it's just very drinkable, fun, delicious.
It's got really good concentrated fruit flavors, and I think they had a pretty bad year. There's lots of hail in the region, and then what that meant was that it destroyed a lot of the buds which turn into the grapes ultimately. And so what was left there was of really, really good quality and has immense amounts of sort of character to it. So let's have a look here. Blending, yeah, and Kathy, you're absolutely right, of course. Like, even on a single vineyard Pinot Noir, there will be blending to try to make sure, like just taking on, when we were at Simpsons down in Kent, they showed us that top left corner there in the vineyard, they used for producing the riper fruits, and then they'll do different picking dates, and sometimes they'll pick it and they'll do it and they'll blend together. It's just to give them different things to play with. But you've got so much more variety to play with when you're working with, oh, well, should I put in 50% of Merlot or should I put in 10% of Merlot? And you can look at the evidence that's in front of you and try to make something. But it's forming the taste profile of what they want, and they're putting things together to make that wine.
Absolutely.
And is there anything wrong with that?
I think it's delicious. It's very drinkable, and that's my after show beverage. So thank you very much. Okay, on that
Great. On that note, so
let's move the tasting notes
let's
on.
move the tasting notes on. Let's take a last look. So Chinese 5-spice and star anise.
Oh, there's
That's
wine there.
cool.
Easy drinking. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Bit of cedar, got a
Brambles.
smoky, medium finish, smooth. And the fact that it's this style of wine and it's just smooth and drinkable, I think is hugely important. Sometimes you go, and you get equivalents and they become a bit watery, a bit mishmashy, a bit disjointed because they're just trying to put it together. But I think this is just really well put together.
Cool. Well, best finish then.
Not very good of you. Okay.
I wouldn't mind a little drop if that's okay, sir.
So well behaved.
Argentina. Now, look, is Argentinian Malbec a trend that's specific for 2023? Probably not. I think that trend has happened.
The Argentinian trend for Malbec is
that's fairly well established.
Continued. I am not saying that Argentinian Malbec is the find that no one has heard of for 2023.
No. But
however,
it's not there's anything wrong with it at all. Everyone loves it. In fact, some people here even make it.
Yes,
but
it's delightful. It's delicious. It's really good. But when we shout Argentina and Malbec, a lot of the time we go straight to Mendoza, which, to be fair, in itself is really good. It's really good that people are starting to pick regions. When I first got into wine, it was medium dry, whatever. Now people are talking about that they like a particular grape from a particular place. And, Argentinian Malbec, and you look at Mendoza, and now people are talking about, the sub-regions of Mendoza, Gutaria, Uco Valley, Luan de Cuyo, and things like that. And that's great, and it's in this stuff. But there are other little regions in Argentina that make wine. It's a big area. So you can go all the way south down to Patagonia, and in our north to south Argentinian trends next month.
You may well do that.
We may well get down to Patagonia, and then you can go up north to an area called Salta. And Salta, you're going up towards the... there we are. There we are. I missed the region. Sorry. The most important region in all of Argentina. Is that correct?
I think so.
You go up, and you get nearer to the equator. So generally, it does get warmer, but you get some very, very high altitude up there in Salta, and especially here in the Cafayate Valley. And this is where this winery, Cuara, is.
And on cue, there is the winery. It's a rather spectacular looking building. I mean, some of the Argentinian wineries are just spectacular, really beautiful architecture, and they take influences from all sorts of different things. This has got that classic style to it, but we've got a bit of history with this wine, haven't we?
Yes, we do. So let's run through. So we're Cuara is the winery. The place we're in the Cafayate Valley in Salta in Argentina. Malbec. The cool fact is
nothing else.
It's got an alpaca on the label, so you know it's going to be good. Don't call it a llama; they'll get very upset. But if you drink these guys top end, the cool fact is it's not just any old llama. It has a golden llama on the bottle, and that's worth everything. So if any you need a cool fact, golden llama on the bottle. The cool fact about Malbec in general, just for those who like a bit of blind tasting or picking out what they pick out. Generally, when we go to red wines, we talk about the fruit. Your two main characteristics, you either go black fruit or red fruit. Malbec is the one that is blue fruit.
Yep.
So generally Malbec will have this massive bang of blueberries that you don't really find in any other wine on the planet, and it can be a bit of a bit of a giveaway.
Bit of a steer. I mean, this is so. I think we're talking about a bit of a hit on it at the back of the throat. This is going up now in the alcohol to about, I think, 13.5, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And so compared to the last one, which was again now nice and, well, we call it low at 12%, nice and medium. So you do notice that for sure, but it's also got a lot more from the berry as well. So it does give you lots of flavour. That's Malbec. But I get the cherry that's I think Viola was saying about, wasn't it? Yeah, the big hit of the cherry on the nose. And yeah, it did almost feel kind of Pulian, like that kind of almost Primitivo-like hit on the nose. But
so what we've got there is because we're quite warm and we're quite high, we get that diurnal shift, so we keep nice acidity. Yeah. But where it is warm, we get a lot of those dried fruit characteristics. And I think, was there an Italian Chianti or something claim in there that was that? You've got this kind of like dried, not raisinated, but dried rose petal and like almost like stewed fruit rather than candied. So we've got this dried, dehydrated kind of fruit going on. Which gives that kind of little bit of an old world feel to it.
Yeah.
But then when we get it on the palate, it's very ripe, it's very juicy, it's very
fruity.
I'm allowed to say unctuous.
Unctuous.
Unctuous. What a wine word.
That's the first time I've heard you saying that.
So we've got
good question. So we got, what altitude is the vineyard? It's I think 1,800 meters. 1,800 meters above sea level. And if you're wanting some more geeky facts, they are yielding 10 to 12 tons per hectare, which doesn't mean much to most people, but for those who've got sort of
10 to 12 tons per hectare, that means a little bit more than 8 and a bit less than 15.
A bit less than 15, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot less than 50.
Happy to help.
Yeah. And yeah, the Amarone, but you were talking about the dried up, raisinated sort of berries thing, which is how you make Amarone. Yeah, for sure. And I think it's all because of the impact, the high altitude, the ultraviolet hitting the skin, strengthening them up, and giving you a lot of that character.
When you're up that high, close to the sun, and we're probably getting a bit geeky for discoveries here, but here goes. Basically, the skins on the grapes will get thicker. The skins kind of be their own sunscreen almost by getting thicker to protect themselves when they're up in these high altitudes with the UV rays.
Quite right.
What have we got for food pairings?
So should I pop the tasting notes up again?
Yeah, let's have the tasting notes. Cherry, spice, tannins, cherry, coffee, oak.
I like that one of them's cheery as well. That's good. I like a cheery wine. Chocolate and clove.
So yeah, we've got all those things. You've got complexity in this wine because you've got those primary flavors, you've got those secondary flavors, you've got those tertiary flavors. But anyway, chef.
You
can be chef.
Oh, I mean, oh gosh.
Dave's got with some blue cheese.
Blue cheese going nicely there. Yeah, I think unfortunately for the vegetarians among us, this is meat for me. This is I'm not sure it's quite into sort of the heaviest ones. It would work with the steak, of course. There's enough sort of acidity to cut through a bit, but I think it would. I think it might be more with a sort of like a not so much like a ribeye, like a fillet with, or even perhaps even some lamb dishes, strongly flavoured. I don't know. What do you think? You're the sommelier. I'm supposed to make stuff.
I'm not sure. Ask Jamie. Okay, cool. So I don't think it's not bold enough for those big, really
big fatty steaks,
cuts. But there's something like a fillet would be fine because you've not got quite as much marbling on there. This, I think, something a bit more simple on the barbecue, something like a cheeseburger or something like that. It's got that fattiness kind of running out of it. Something a little bit more simple. Beef tacos, something like that would be good. I just think, a bit. This isn't quite there for a big hunk of meat and all that goes with it, but some just grilled food. Yeah.
But it could go beautifully with especially with the dark chocolate without too much of a hit of sugar. That could be a lovely little pairing.
Yeah, as long as you're not going too you're not going to be an 80% cookie. You don't want any that level of bitterness in there. But kind of like a chocolate truffle kind of thing would be good with that. Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, you've been drinking. That's the whole point. That's great. No, don't worry at all. We just love seeing these little things in there. But what do you think? Do we like it?
Yeah, Rich has been drinking far too much of wine number one tonight.
Yeah, dark fruit. There's a bit of a vegetal character to it. Yeah, just that's kind of slightly stalky side of things. But I think what's quite interesting, I don't believe this does anything in oak at all, does it?
No.
And yet you still have some of those chocolatey characters and the coffee characters which you would associate with oak. That is the power of Argentinian Malbec. It almost delivers itself in a wooden barrel even when it hasn't had one. It's mad.
So I'm doing that. Can I go to wooden barrel, please? No. Fine. Sort it myself.
I'll sort this.
You're not
I've
going
got a
out like that.
plan.
Yes, I am. Fantastic. No, I think it's these guys, great winery. They make Malbecs across different ranges. They make some fantastic Torrontés, and just nice people. I know, the guy who's the export director. I used to work with him with another winery that he was a part of when I was in Washington DC. Always been a good person, and such a big part of wine is the people, the connections, and stuff like that. So it's wonderful to be able to support a winery where I know the people. So
Malbec, but in higher, cooler places. That's our kind of thing, and from more specific little places, that's.
It's once again,
that's just it.
Find a style that you like, and go 100 miles. See what else is happening. A lot of this, trends for people is where can we get outside of our comfort zone? Whether it's to try something better value, try something slightly different, try the same, and even if you go, somewhere and go up the mountain, you're going to have a different wine. So it's
Well, I always thought that was with Bordeaux as well. When Saint-Emilion started getting to that price where they're a little bit more sort of punchy than they used to be, if you start going to the villages just around it,
that's why that's why you've got the satellites, isn't it? The satellites are there. You've got Petit Chablis, you've got Medoc, Medoc, you've got all these little places, and I think Burgundy is probably the king of being that you can be in one field with £1,000 bottles of wine.
You go 2 feet to the left,
fall over the fence going down the hill the wrong way, and you've got a 60 quid bottle of wine on the same slope, same grapes.
Broadly speaking, similar soil.
Maybe even the same winemaker.
Maybe.
But because it's gone across that boundary, it can be there. So
indeed. And
you can find
it is all about the story. And, if you can say this is the best bit of it, then suddenly that story is worth a lot of money. So
absolutely. So as we move on, I'd love to see anyone in the chat. Has anybody had an Indian wine before? Because this is a bit of a curveball. I wasn't expecting this. It's a new for Alex. It's a new for the online wine tasting club. We've not done an Indian wine before.
I've had one of their wines before. I can't remember. I think it was a Cabernet. If I'm going to be honest, it wasn't as good as this one. But this one's nicer, which is good. I'm relieved about that. But yeah, Indian wines. Now, back in the year, whenever it was, 2019, when I started going, I moved on from doing a lot of my early studies, and I decided I'd do the Master of Science at Plumpton College in East Sussex. My winemaking teacher left to go to a winery called Rathvinny. And I was rather heartbroken about this because he's a really good guy. And we were told there's a new guy coming from India. And I thought, from India? I didn't even know India made wine. And he turned up, and it turns out he had been making wine in Bordeaux. He'd been making wine in Italy. And he'd been making wine then back in India. And now he finds himself teaching the next generation of English winemakers. So here's to Dr. Akshay Babu.
Good. Let's pop the tasting notes on.
Yeah,
so
I actually have, and bring them up. Yeah.
Oh, you put them up. Yeah. You're that quick. I didn't think people would be in there that quick with the things.
There is a slightly kind of
it's almost for those who've had one before. It's almost a little pinotage.
Yeah.
Almost a little pinotage.
Yeah.
So the reason behind this wine is
interesting.
We chuck, and take when I first started studying wine, you needed to know there was Spain, Italy, France, Germany, bit about the USA. The page on English wine was on page 413, and it was about half a paragraph that existed.
Yep.
Greece made some wine. And that was about it. Now you've got to know the different
God.
sub-regions of Greece. You've got to know the sub-ABAs of Napa Valley. You've got to know this. You've got to,
and they keep adding new ones.
There's
as well.
always something new happening, and we're starting to see a big influx of wine from China. We're starting to see, people like Sula and Jay Noon from India making wine that can stand on the world stage. It's not, we made some wine for the sake of making some wine. And 10, 15 years ago, maybe a bit less than that even, I was judging at the IWC, the International Wine Challenge, and we had a flight of Indian wines. And that time around, I was like, why have they
bothered?
Why has somebody paid to have this judge? Because they were just obscenely bad.
It's such a different climate, though. That's the thing, with monsoon rain. That's not something that you have to deal with if you're making Zinfandel in California or Primitivo in Italy. That's not the usual sort of problem. So, and this was the very first winery in this Nashik region, and yet now it's one of the biggest winemaking regions in the whole of India. And I don't know. It is strange. It is something I don't know a huge amount about, and I would love to know more.
I think the thing that is really important here is people are putting their tasting notes.
Yeah,
I think if I tell people that this is a Zinfandel, they're going to go, "I'm quite disappointed in this as a Zinfandel."
Yep. Okay.
Because it doesn't taste like a Zinfandel.
No.
Do you agree? You agree?
Yeah, I agree with you. Okay. I think it's not. I think it is closer to.
But however,
like you say,
anyone
the
who
Pinotage.
grew up drinking Sancerre and loves Sauvignon Blanc, and is then given a glass of Marlborough, would go,
That's
not Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah.
So what we've got to bear in mind is, as these new countries coming to our market, this is their take on what Zinfandel is. Pinot Noir from Burgundy tastes very different to Pinot Noir from Santa Barbara.
Yep.
Yeah. Chenin Blanc from the Loire tastes very different to Chenin Blanc from South Africa. So, and even Primitivo, which is Zinfandel, tastes very different to Zinfandel from California. So why should we expect this to taste the same?
Yeah.
What we've got to realise is we shouldn't be benchmarking this against other Zinfandels we've had. We should be benchmarking against other wines and whether we like it or don't like it or whatever. I think
I think it's better than a lot of Pinotage.
It is better than a lot of Pinotage. Yeah. I think it's interesting. I think there's nice fruit there. It does have this medicinal quality.
Yeah.
A slight medicinal quality.
So we've got lots of questions.
I think it's quite Marmitey.
What is the climate like? So primarily in this part of the world, it is warm and dry most of the year round. It can be a bit humid, but it's warm and it's dry. And the big change comes with when the monsoon season comes in, and suddenly all hell breaks loose. But I think it's obviously they've got quite red, iron-rich soils, a bit like some of the parts of Australia that we've seen. And does some of that come through? Is it quite irony in content?
Absolutely. That's why you get this metallic minerality. But you said about the monsoon that all hell breaks loose. It kind of does, but they don't irrigate. So the monsoon season coming through is that replenishment of the water into the soil for the water table. So without monsoon season, you've got no grapes next year. You've got nothing. So you're just going to be arid desert. So there's that balance of picking versus monsoon versus it. And it's really tricky. And you look at other and I'm just banging my way around Asia here. And you end up in Thailand. There's wineries in Thailand that, because of the climate, they have 2 vintages a year. They have a spring vintage and a autumn vintage. So with these kind of dry monsoony things, you get different growing conditions, different growing seasons, and therefore different styles of wine. They've got there's different countries have to deal with different things. What do we deal with? Not enough sunshine and frost.
Frost, mildew.
What does California and Australia? Drought and fire and
smoke damage.
And India deals with drought and then monsoon.
Lots of frost.
So we've got
they have a lot of clay in the soil, which is what then sort of acts almost like a kind of
sponge.
A sponge, absorbs it all and gives it and it's a mixture. So they've got enough drainage, enough gravel for it to not rot the roots. And
it doesn't drown anything. It takes on so much, but then it doesn't kind of it doesn't saturate it. It holds the right amount. It's kind of genius, really.
That's only my understanding. That if you aren't irrigating, it's technically dry farmed. Yeah. Is that right? I mean, I think dry farming. I've only ever seen it relating to ones where there is not much natural rainfall. But
Kathy,
yeah,
I think yes, but don't quote me on it. Is that fair? We'll do a little bit more of a look, and I'll find out a little bit more, and I can let you know.
sounds good. But so and we've got we're preferring South African Zinfandel. Yeah, certainly. It's I think it's actually pretty decent. I really do.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I think the point is you have that first sip of it with it saying Zinfandel.
Yeah.
And more than anything, it's not so much a dislike; it's a shock because it's not what you expect.
It's strange. The more I'm drinking it, the more that jammy quality does come through there.
It needs a little bit of air.
So I've got to we've got a question here. Where in India is Nashik? Now it's in Masharaha. I can't remember off the top of my head exactly where that is, so I've got to apologise. I'm sure somebody can tell me, or I could actually. Do you know what? Somebody can Google it and bring that up. But it's in the Masharaha region, and I think it's certainly now what, if not, I think it's the number one region for winemaking in India. And someone's going to tell me I'm wrong. I'm sorry. We're in slightly uncharted territory here. Did they cover much on Indian wine in the diploma, Kathy? Because I don't know if I've seen it on many syllabuses, but it's. All right, let's do a cool fact other than the facts from India, and that is already
the cool fact is Kathy, who's now got a diploma, would not like to get it in a blind tasting.
That is cool fact. What Sula they really do is they try to bring together workers from disadvantaged communities to do them, to give them lots of work, and then to improve their standards of living and to improve their education. And so there's a real program of kind of social giving back for their winery, and I think that's really good. So apparently there was nothing in the diploma on India, and tiny some on China, which is not surprising. We packed up a tasting for Oz Clark, which was it Jade Mountain, I think, wasn't it? Jade.
Yes, Mountain. Okay. I want to say Jade Garden, but that's my local Chinese restaurant. So no. Jade Mountain.
Assuming we got that right. And the price of some of these wines were actually really quite up there. They were quite expensive wines.
Well, they're making a lot of premium grapes. So there's a lot of Pinot Noir, a lot of Bordeaux blends.
Lots of Bordeaux blends, yeah. And they're poaching good winemakers as well.
But I think we're slightly
going off on a tangent.
Digressing.
Food pairing. What are we going to do with that? I mean, because obviously we've got our tasting notes here, and I think I agree with all of these things.
I think there's all this stuff that takes me back to South African pinotage, and it does just go to that kind of like that braai kind of style, big fire grilled steaks, lamb
tikka.
See, the thing, if you go classic, if we went for kind of like an Indian wine with Indian food, what level of spice would you have with this? Because
not a high for me, but I mean,
you don't want to be too high because you don't want to make the alcohol feel higher than it is. 13%. So something like a Lamb Rogan Josh would do the job quite well with this.
I was thinking about the kind of the lamb kebabs which are covered in spice and then cooked in the tandoor, and that sort of thing. And I think that
a little lamb shish would be good.
Yeah,
or just late night kebab in one hand, bottle of wine in the other.
The Online Wine Tasting Club giving you thorough practical advice when on your way back from a nice club.
For a long day wine tasting.
Long day wine tasting.
Should we pop on to see what people's favourites were?
Let's stick it over. I think because you've got another question in there, haven't you? So you'd asked an excellent. Oh no, we've got this. The wines of the night first. So what it should be popping into now is the wines of the night. Are you so shocked that an alcohol-free wine could taste? You've put it down Chablis.
I was getting excited. That's meant to say Chardonnay, but
that is meant to say Chardonnay. I wonder if I can change that. I don't know. Chard. Save. There we go. So what you can do is you can rank these. You can drag them up and down, and I'm probably broken it by doing that now, aren't I?
Because it was live. Yeah.
but yeah, so hopefully you can rank these wines in the order of what you think. Were you really shocked that an Indian wine could be great? Have you found your new thing in Macedonia and realised that that's the one for you? I'm intrigued to know, and I hope it's working. I've broken it, haven't I?
Yeah,
Why does tech only ever do that? Never mind. Oh no, there we are. That should be on now. Yes, there we go. So I'm going to leave that hidden down there.
I'm Alex. I click buttons when I don't need to, Taylor. Welcome to
I'm
the
Jamie.
Wine
I
Tasting
call
Club.
a non-alcoholic South African wine Chablis.
What can I say?
That's what you can expect from the international emerging talent in wine. Anyway, I hope you've had a wonderful night, and I hope you've found some new things. And do you know what? Call us out on it. Let's get to the end of the year and say, do you know what? Alcohol-free wine has just gone nowhere, and I've tried a few of them. They're all hopeless, and I don't like it.
Or you can say Jamie's a genius.
Or you can say
what's his trends for 2024?
Quite right. You could say
Likely
that.
story.
You could say that.
So while we're doing this, folks, just for those who are new to us, great to see you. Hope you had a great time.
Yeah.
Remember,
let us know what you like.
It's your club. If it's not great, email alex.taylor@onlinetasting.co. If it is great, email jamie.smith@onlinetasting.co with
Thanks for giving us. So anyway,
exactly. But let us know what you want. Coming up next month, we're doing Wines of Argentina, which is going to be a lot of fun. If you love trends and want to get on very quickly, we're doing our Adventures series on Friday. So if you get an order in before midnight tonight, I'll be with you in time for Friday.
And that's a bit more about kind of, cool sustainable practices in the vineyards.
Winemaking techniques. He's going to talk about regenerative farming with Tablas Creek Roussanne. So there's some exciting stuff there. Next month, we're doing all things South America. So on the Discoveries, we're going to be doing a north to south tour of Argentina. And on the Adventurers, we are going to be doing a alternative South America. Maybe a bit of Brazil, maybe a bit of Uruguay, a couple of regions in Argentina and Chile that you
maybe a few
might not be on the tip of your tongue.
Yeah.
The joy of that adventure series is I shall not be here, so Alex is going to be hosting it with our resident spare host, genius, WSET educator, and all things maker wine merchant, Mr. Lee Isaacs. So that's exciting. And also coming up for next month, for those of you who get bored of listening to us for an hour, we are going to be launching some 3-packs. So you can get just a little 3-pack of wine designed for your everyday drinking wines. 15 quid for the pack. There's going to be a £10 voucher in it, so you can then buy your favourite wines. And there'll just be a little QR code on there that will just give you a minute, basically along the lines of what you see down the side there. The producer, the place, the grapes, this. And just to help you find your next great glass without having
not
to
the
listen
live
to us.
tasting kind of thing.
Less live, more
for the TikTok generation, all that. So who would like to know what is the wine of the night? I think I'm not surprised about this because it was a real. The feedback was so lovely when we were all drinking, wasn't it? But it is the wine number 3, the Vermentino, closely followed by the Quara Malbec. So I think that's quite a expected result. So, but that's great. So check these things out. And in fact, what you can do, I'm going to quickly put on to the very last question. Well, which is like, you've got this thing about which trend you most likely to follow. You can answer that if you like, and then we'll just show you
pop the prices
up. Yeah, there we go.
So lots and lots of what I feel massive value tonight. Non-alcoholic, they're expensive because of the extra processing. They make a wine and it goes through another process, so they will be a touch more expensive. Smenorevka offers great value. The Balls is great, and the Vermentino, even at 15 quid, it's not an expensive bottle of wine for small production, handcrafted, artisanal wine, skin contact, all that kind of stuff. The Quara, I just think Malbec's another one that they're creeping up in price a little bit. And this is offering great value. And Zinfandel for something a little bit different. So I hope you see some real value in that. If you love them, buy them. Any 6 bottles mix or match is free shipping. And that's not just, you don't have to buy 6 of the same. And if there's only one bottle you like here, look on the rest of the website and dive in and go, I want a bit of this, a bit of that. There's some cool, real premium stuff on there at the moment. There's some stuff from Duckhorn, some stuff from Pierce. He only made 600 bottles and we've got 5 of them. So there's some really cool cult stuff on there at the moment. But yeah, if you love it, buy them because, as people buy these wines, we can go back to the wineries and go, yes, we sold some wine afterwards. And that gets them excited to get more cool wines from us and let us launch things and do more fun tastings and get more content for you guys.
And I think for if you're one of the people who normally buys a £6 bottle of wine, what you've got to realise is of that £6, only really probably about 20p ends up going towards the wine itself. So if you go up to a £10 bottle of wine, so much more money goes to the winemaker, and they can do fun things with it. So I think it's a really good thing. Do we have any of the Naughty Sparkling? We can get some for you. We can absolutely get some. Yeah, just let us know and we can get that in, because I buy it a lot for myself, and it is really, really good.
Should we have a look at people's last minute
Let's have a
trends,
look at
and then
the
we'll let
last minute
people get on
trends.
with the rest of their evening?
Yeah, there we go. Wesley, trying anything new. That's what we want, isn't it?
There we are. So you are in the right place with
In
the
the right
online
place.
wine tasting club. So
Quite right too.
but anyway,
well, we hope you've had a wonderful evening. I'm going to get rid of this off the screen, and we really look forward to sharing some really cool wines this year. You stick with us over this the whole of the year. It's 12 months of 6 wines. That's a lot of discovery, and it's a lot of fun.
Lots of fun, lots of drinking.
But
anyway, have a wonderful night, and we'll see you all again very, very soon.
Take care.
Cheers.
Good night.
Good night.